are live. Mike, I can hear everything you guys are saying, thinking. I can hear your thoughts, so keep that in mind. While we're live, I need you to be quiet. Okay, so let's look at our thread real quick, just briefly. Housekeeping while our last couple of friends make their way into second period today. We're talking about the game Grid Garden today. It's a very simple assignment that I have for you to do because I want you to practice grids. CSS grids are something that are really confusing to kind of get the hang of. And so I want you to think of this like a pretest where I'm not grading on quality or level of completion. I'm just grading on an attempt made, right? I want to see that you tried it. I want to see that you experimented with it. I'm less concerned about how correct it is or how far you get into the levels, which will make sense here in just a second. But I'm mostly looking for an attempt so that we can set a baseline that we can revisit later on. We'll talk about it a little bit more after break, but we also have Java to do after break. So it'll be kind of a mix of grids and Java. And then for the actual submission, because this is just a game on the internet, I'll show you how to submit it in just a second. I have put a ton of resources for the CSS grid inside of our agenda for the day. A variety of videos, a variety of like written walkthroughs, because CSS grids is one of those things that I'm still struggling with as a developer. I have a pretty solid grasp on it, but it's still a lot of things I don't quite understand yet. So because of that, we're just going to set this as kind of our baseline, and we're going to expand on it after break. So if we go into the modules and find your way to Unit 6, let me go back to student view real quick. Find your way to Unit 6. There is assignment 6.2, Grid Garden. Right. Hi, good morning. So on 6.2, this is Grid Garden. I was on level, it didn't save my progress. I get to about level 20, 21 before it starts to get confusing. So let's start at level 1 here. The CSS grid is something that behaves very similarly to CSS Flex, but instead of being based on percentages and viewport width and viewport height and stuff like that, it uses a different type of measurement called an FR, which is a fractional unit. And it's a lot more granular than I'm going to get into today. I just want to show you guys how to play Grid Garden. So before we get into that, actually, I want to talk about the expectations of the assignment. So complete as many levels as you can. You can complete one level, you can complete all 28. They are both worth the same amount of points. I just want to see you guys experimenting with this, practicing this a little bit, because that's worth half of your 5 points is just putting the screenshot of your progress into the final level. The second part about the actual web design portion, the actual description portion, is we're going to talk about why you think grid can be a useful tool for web page layout or some of your complaints about it. I just want you to give me your opinion on CSS grids after you play a little bit of Grid Garden. So how do you actually play Grid Garden? You may be asking, because it's all text-based. I'll give you the quick walkthrough. The grid is set up in this way that these are all different sections that the user or the developer has decided on. And you can see this display is set to grid. There's columns, so it behaves similarly to tables and rows. Each column takes up 20% of the available space here, and each row the same, 20% of the available space. So that makes this, in order to get 100%, we have a 5x5 grid with 25 total squares, and they're broken down into columns and rows. What you can do to move this water element to the carrot element, because that's your goal, you want to water your carrots, we can set this element to start at a different grid column than the default, like the point of origin. Like if you're using divs with no position offset or anything like that, it's going to go off that top left point of origin. We can move this element over to the carrots so that they get watered by setting the grid column start property, grid-column-start for the water element. We're going to have it start at grid column number 3. So when I put the value of 3 in there, it's going to move the water over so that it takes up, hi, good morning, so that it takes up or that it waters our carrots. Thank you. Okay. So then this next one, let me get rid of that. We have weeds growing in the garden. We need to get rid of those weeds. The same rule applies where I can set this poison, this weed killer. I can set the grid column start for the weed killer to be on grid column number 5, because this is column 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're gonna have it start on grid column 5, and that's gonna land on the weeds and get rid of them from our garden. Once I go next through here. So then you can experiment with if you want elements to span multiple columns, you want them to move across multiple amounts of space on your grid garden. You can set a grid column start. So you can see our our element is gonna start on this first grid column. And we want it to move across these 3 available spaces here. So we want it to end over on line number, or column number 3, I mean. So that's what I'm gonna set my grid dash column dash end to. Set it to 3. Now, you may notice that if I set my grid column end to 3, it only takes up 2 spaces. It's because the grid column does not reference these squares. It does not reference this space right here. It references the lines that divide each of the grids, right? If you think about making a table like in science, if you need a 2x4 table, you draw 3 lines and then 1 across the top, so you have 2 sections, whatever. It'll make sense here in just a second. This is grid column number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These are all, there's 6 total lines moving across these different columns. So you would think grid column 3 would put it in the 3rd grid column, but that's just where it's going to end, right at the beginning of grid column 3. If you want it to encompass, we need to include that in the math or in the summary so that it ends on grid column number 4 and highlights the entirety of the available carrots here. All right. So since I'm still figuring out grid myself, I get to about level 21 or so. And then it starts to, wait, maybe it was 20. It was 20. Level 20 was where I got to when I last practiced. So get as far as you can. Once you get to as far as you can, say I get to level 3. To submit this, you're gonna write a very simple HTML page inside of your Unit 6 root. But first we need a screenshot of our progress. To get your screenshot, you can you click on your Windows icon here and type snip or whatever. And you want this snip and sketch app. When you click on that, it's gonna pop open this little window. Yours might be a different size than mine. Oops. It's gonna pop this open. We're gonna click on new, okay? I don't know what it does to the Zoom room, but when you click on new, it allows you to draw out a little, it allows you to draw out a screenshot of how much information you want to include, and it's going to put it inside of that little snip and sketch window. It's tempting to copy that, but we want to save it to our Unit 6 root folder in the SRC subfolder. So find your way to 2nd period web design, and then find your way to your Unit 6 root folder, and then find your way to your SRC subfolder. You can just leave the default file name. Doesn't have to be anything crazy. I'm gonna save it there. Minimize all these. And then once you get as far as you feel comfortable or as far as you want to be challenged by, let me open up your Unit 6 folder. That was first periods. Unit 6. All right, so to make your actual submission inside of your Unit 6 root, click on your big rectangle for your root folder, create a new HTML file for 6.2. 6.2.html. Oh, these are question marks. Let's make those not question marks. Okay, you do not need a style sheet for 6.2. And close my other ones. The only 2 things that you need on 6.2, start this like a normal HTML file real quick. Oh, I put P1. Oops. Fix that real quick. 6.2. Okay, I'll fix that in a second. So pretend that this says P2 because you guys are, in case you missed it, you are P2. Okay, so inside of here, I'm just going to put an image by typing IMG and then start with my subfolder of SRC inside of the quotes. I'm going to put my screenshot of my grid garden progress and then name it, give it some alt text describing what the image loads or get what the image is in case it doesn't load. This is my grid garden progress. And then after that, I'm going to add a paragraph element explaining why I think grids are a useful tool and any, oh, I messed up. There we go. other thoughts? Positive or negative, because this will get kind of challenging towards the end. I have on scripts. So these are the two required pieces that you need to submit for 6.2. You need a screenshot of your progress and a paragraph explaining why you think grids are a useful tool. Your output should look something like this. It's got your, oh, I'm zoomed in, that would be why. Your grid garden screenshot and your sentence right down here at the bottom. Once you've done that, you can zip and submit 6.2, or unit 6, because this is our last assignment for unit 6. And then the rest of the time is yours to work on whatever else you need to work on. So does anybody have any questions about what I'm asking of you guys to do today or how to submit 6.2? Are we all good? Okay, I'm going to close up the Zoom. It was a short one today. So thank you guys for listening. The rest of the time is yours. I'll help you individually should you need it. Yeah.